Welcome back to Rule Number 3, the podcast committed to an asshole-free workplace. I'm your host, Eric Harkins, founder and president of GKG Search and Consulting, and author of the book, Great Leaders Make Sure Monday Morning Doesn't Suck. This is part 2 of our conversation with Michael Kithcart. If you weren't able to listen in to episode 1, Michael is a high-performance leadership and sales coach. She is the creator of Wynning Your Way method and a podcaster and keynote speaker. So, Michael, welcome back to the second part of our conversation. Part 1 was a lot of fun and looking forward to this conversation as well.
Yes, time flies when I'm talking with you, Eric.
It's always fun. I know. I look down, I'm like, well, all right, we better wrap things up. So let's start with something we've never talked about this. I've known you for years and we've met a few times. When you were in college, your dream goal was to do play-by-play in the NFL and eventually own the New York Giants. So I have so many questions. First of all, why the New York Giants and not the Minnesota Vikings? Because I should have done a little more due diligence on my guests, but that's okay. And how does somebody who grew up and went to college in North Dakota like the New York Jets? And so, I mean, there's just so many questions, but what a cool dream to have. Now, I love how you talk about some of the struggles as a woman in a male-dominated field, especially, it's gotten better over the years, but certainly, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you didn't see many, female sportscasters. So I'll stop talking, but I'm so interested in this. Tell us, how that dream came to be your dream when you were in college.
Yes, well, and let's just, it's still a dream, right?
Hey, it's never too old, never too late to be what you might have been. We ended part 1 of our conversation with that.
That's exactly it. Yes, to date, I still do not own the New York Giants, and some would question why would you want to?
Did you happen? Sorry, side note. Did you happen to see Michael Jordan just sold his ownership stake in the Charlotte Hornets?
No.
He bought it for $175 million and sold it for $1.5 billion. So that would be why you'd want to own the New York Giants. But crazy.
Yes, that's a good reason why. But why I had the dream was not even thinking about that. My family's originally from New York. When I was younger, we lived in different places in New York and Ohio, and I just always wanted to live in New York. When I was growing up, I did end up living in New York later, in my adult life and everything. So I just always loved the Giants, even though I was living in Fargo, North Dakota. By the time I was in high school, I went to college there and became a sports writer. And that's where I wanted to be the first play-by-play, even now today. More and more we see women on the sidelines as part of the coaching teams, certainly on TV, but there's still a lot of times providing some of the color commentary. And play-by-play is it. That is like a dream. And I will just share that my dream was shattered because Gail Sierens from Tampa was the first woman to do NFL play-by-play.
Okay.
That might be like a trivia question.
Yeah, I think it is a good one.
Answer. And she only did it for 1 year, and she didn't even that wasn't like her dream because I was in college and she did what I wanted to do. So I called her. Okay. I called her and said, wow, how in the world did you get to do? And she talked to me. Yeah. She was a big time newscaster in Tampa. And very cool. So anyway,
well, hey, it's never too late to be what you might have been. So I will look forward to, for those of you who aren't from Minnesota, I'm based in Minnesota. Paul Allen is our, play-by-play guy for the Minnesota Vikings. So I look forward to you and Paul calling a Vikings game side by side here at some point. So we'll make that happen. So
I worked with PA when I was at iHeart. So
let's we talked a little bit about your background, and again, for those of you who didn't have a chance to listen to the first part of our conversation, just a really cool background: sales, coaching, COO. You've held a lot of different roles. One of the things that you talk about that I want to jump into is a few ways you can be purposeful in your day. And in our first conversation, first part of our conversation, we were talking about energy and positivity and the importance of not worrying and that. But there's 5 things that you talk about. And so I want to kind of unpack each one. So you wrote a blog, you talk about it, these, few ways you can be purposeful. And the first one is bring the right energy. So tell us a little bit about what that means.
Yes. And in that context, it's about living on purpose versus living a purpose, because your purpose changes in life, right? So if you're living on purpose, bringing the energy means deciding before you go on a podcast, how are you going to show up? Before you walk into a meeting, you have a conversation with somebody, like what kind of excitement, enthusiasm, appropriate energy are you going to bring to a situation?
Sure. That's awesome.
That's something you can control in any given moment.
Yeah. Yep.
And it makes the difference.
Yeah, absolutely. Your second one, help more. And there's more to it, but the intro to it is just help more. Talk to us about that.
It's like the opposite of complaining, right? So if you notice that you're complaining and you're pointing fingers, it's like, okay, what can you do to help that situation?
Sure. Yep.
And it could also be as simple as maybe you're having kind of a crummy day. Help somebody. Help them, put groceries in a car, open a door. I mean, it's just common courtesy, but sometimes we have to be reminded of it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And unfortunately, when we see it now, it stands out, right? Because it's unique. So number 3, have more discussions on value and meaning. I love that. So tell me more about that.
Yes. Quit with the small talk.
Yeah.
Like ask the questions you've been pondering, but have been afraid to ask. Yeah. Engage with people. Ask them what they really think about something and care about the response. Yeah. But let's just not have elevator chat. Let's go deep quick.
Yeah. No, I love that. And, I tell a story in my last role in corporate America. I had an interim role where I was still leading HR, but I was kind of overseeing stores. And so I was doing a lot of travel. I was talking to a lot of, part-time, full-time employees. And I asked every single person I met, I asked them the same question. What's the worst part about working here? And it was like, I really want to know. And once people realize like, no, this isn't just I'm interested, like, I really want to know. When they start talking to you, you can get into some pretty deep conversations. So I love that one. The 4th one is volunteer.
Yes. Yes. We are, so many are so fortunate. And there's, whether it's a kids baseball team you coach for, whether it's, stocking a food shelf, there's something about giving back and expecting absolutely nothing in return. Yeah. But just giving of yourself in a different way that actually is energizing and fulfills that purpose piece, right? It without you having to like dig deep of, is this my meaning in my life? Just, kind of goes with help, but it's a little bit different because volunteering is a little more on the commitment side.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and I encourage people. I encouraged myself. I realized I wasn't volunteering enough and recently committed to a new volunteer role. So no, I think that's great. And then the last one, number 5, journal gratitude. So as an author, I appreciate that one, but I'd love to hear, how you use that in your coaching, and how do you find that journaling can help leaders, become better? Journaling helps you find your voice. Yeah. It just, flat out does. Yeah. And taking a few minutes every day to not orchestrate it, to just actually like free flow of thought, and to do it with pen and paper, not typing. It engages a different part of your brain. It will unlock what's deep in your subconscious, and that is the most valuable information any of us can harvest. Really. Right. And the gratitude piece on the journaling is so much research shows that people who have a gratitude practice, whether it's verbal or written down, but you consistently are identifying the things that you're grateful for in life, that you are a happier person.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that is true. So, you do so much coaching. That's your core business now. You've been a coach for years. You talked about your coaching, and I want to get this right, but you said coaching came from my journey of learning about myself and striving to do better as a leader and a person. And so, did you find that was just a natural thing for you? But I that just sort of stuck out at me. And then you went on to say your road of self-discovery and improvement continues to evolve. And I think that's a really important thing I want to talk about is I don't think it's ever over, is it? Right. I mean, this is a journey and we're never not learning. So,
right. Yeah. Those, continuous improvement, a commitment to evolving and growing is essential. Like we work with leaders, so it's essential for leaders. I think it's essential for us as humans.
Yeah.
And so I want people to know that I share what I've learned along the way in hopes that there'll be pieces that are helpful to you.
Yeah.
And that my growth continues. So if I'm challenging you to up-level your leadership effectiveness, if I'm challenging you to step into the person you are truly capable of becoming, please know I'm doing the same damn work.
Right. Yeah, and I think we lose that at times, right? And I think that genuine and authentic leader that we talked about earlier, understands, hey, and is humble and vulnerable. You use the word vulnerable to admit, listen, I actually think the best thing that a high performer could hear from their leader is, I don't know what we need to do. I need your help. Tell me what we need to do. That's when you start to really see the value. Listen, I trust and respect you. So I think that's a big one. And do you find what keeps people from having that vulnerability? What do you think keeps that leader from saying, I don't have all the answers?
Confidence is one. And vulnerability is such a big word.
Yeah.
I struggle to say it sometimes. It's one of the biggest things that I've had to learn on my journey.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is, I'll say for me, what I had to learn is that I didn't think that people wanted to know like what I thought or what I felt. And that was such a gap and a blind spot for me.
Yeah.
And once I realized that I had to share, like with people, careful not to overshare, right?
Right.
But to share like what was a struggle for me, what was hard, what really got me down, what really lifted me up.
Yeah.
That invited people to share what was going on with them. It changed everything.
Yeah.
And so I think it's fear that prevents leaders from doing it. It's a lack of confidence because they think it's supposed to sound a certain way.
Yeah.
And so if I could just encourage people to just share, it will make an enormous difference.
Yeah.
It will take you to a different level.
Love it. Yeah, that's great advice. So I want to jump back to our conversation about your college dream and the NFL and owning an NFL team. So I saw, I can't remember where I saw it, but you said there are locker room moments in every day. Or there are locker room moments every day. Tell us about that, and what does that mean?
When I was a sports editor for a paper, and I also worked for the city paper, I got flown to an away football game to cover it. And I'm trying to make this really short, but therein lies the point. I was the only female. Because it was an away game, there wasn't a universal place to be able to interview the coaches and players after the game. I had a deadline. I had to get back on a plane, and I needed a quote from the coach. I needed a quote from the player.
Yeah.
I asked people, like, could you bring somebody out? Could you bring it? And nobody came out. Nobody came out. So I went in. And I went into the locker room and I got my quotes, and it created all kinds of turmoil and screaming and hollering and everything. But I got what I needed. And I got on the plane and I got the story done. And so there are locker room moments in every single day. Are you going to sit back and just wait for things to happen? Or are you going to go make it happen and get it done? Right? Are you going to use it as an excuse of why you can't make things happen? Or are you going to eliminate the excuses and get after it?
Yep.
Every day there are locker room moments. So what's it going to be for you?
I love it. Love it. So, and that's probably a perfect segue to my next question, because, I would guess part of the reason that people struggle to, have that locker room moment, you also talk about, listen, don't let a little doubt or ridicule stop you from going after what you want or need. I think that's what you just talked about, but that, whether it's the worrying, letting negative thoughts come in, worrying about things that are never going to happen. I think you said 97% of what we worry about never happens. That's amazing, but I think that's absolutely true. So, why do we let that doubt creep in and ridicule stop us from doing what we really believe is best?
Yeah, we have well-worn told stories, well-worn grooves and stories that we tell ourselves. And when you start to interrupt those stories and go, wait a second, what part of that is fact? What part of it is fiction? Oh, hey, guess what? I can tell myself a different story.
Right.
So why not tell yourself an empowering story?
Right.
And use that to help you take the next step forward. So I think that's a big piece. The other thing I would say around the doubt and the worry is we make things so big. Right. We talk about like the end result.
Right.
But if you can chunk it down all the way down to what am I willing to do right now that's going to just get me a little bit closer to that, that can help remove some of that doubt and worry and help you get going.
I don't know why I just thought of this, but there was a senior leader at Best Buy when I was there that used to talk about the danger of euphoric recall, kind of remembering things the way we want to remember them instead of maybe how they actually really happened, and how that can get in your way and, progress. So one of the last things that I want to talk about, because I think it's a really, really powerful statement and quote of yours, and I want to spend as much time as you want to on it, but I think this is really powerful. Gain more by releasing control. What a powerful statement. So talk to me about that. I mean, there's so much we could probably cover on that.
Oh, yes. Well, I have battle scars to support this statement.
Perfect.
So what I would say about this is to allow. So many times we just hold on so tightly to beliefs, to what we think we can control when we actually can't. Right. And when you just let go and allow things to emerge, to take shape, to identify, okay, this is what I'm going to do in this, and I'm not going to worry about the rest of the things. You gain so much more. I mean, first of all, it's freeing as heck.
Right.
And just that shift to allowing, instead, like if you feel like you're forcing something, you're just pushing up against something, right? And it's like, why won't this client say yes? Why can't I get my kids to do this?
Right.
Let go.
Yeah.
Allow what's supposed to come. And that really, like, I can't tell you, I have case study after case study. People come back because sometimes people poo-poo me. Like, will you just be willing to try?
Right.
And what comes back is amazing.
And I would imagine it's really hard for some people. it's probably hard for everyone, but really hard for some people to just let go. So that, and maybe this is the answer to the question, but I love to ask people this question. I mentioned my daughter, she's, just graduated from college about a year ago. She's early in her career. My son is in college, so he'll be starting his career. What's one piece of advice that you'd give, my son and daughter, or anyone who's just either coming out of college or a trade school or out of high school, just starting their career? What's one piece of advice you'd give them?
Have more fun.
Yeah.
Honestly.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah.
It just, don't take yourself so seriously.
Yeah.
I had a, midlife crisis at 25 of like, oh, I'm not as far along in my life as I thought I would be. And I'm not this and I'm not that. And it's like,
right.
Oh my goodness. I would tell anybody coming out, just have some more fun.
Yeah.
And, explore.
Right. Have fun, explore, and realize that life is too short to work for assholes, right? So that's my favorite.
Exactly.
That's my favorite one.
Bring it home. Bring it home.
So, hey, I see your books in the background. Awesome collection of books. Do you have a book or two that you'd want to recommend to people? Maybe something you've read recently, or just one of your favorite go-tos on the topic that we've been talking about?
Yeah, one that I have read recently that I really like is called The Gap and the Gain. By, I think it's Dan Sullivan. Last name is Sullivan. Okay. It's great. It's about happiness. It's about, achieving goals. He's I'll tell you, he's a sports guy. He's got lots of sports examples in his books and everything like that. So that speaks to me, but that's like a good universal one, no matter where you are in your career or whatever, you'll pull something out of The Gap and the Gain. Yeah,
no, awesome. Well, I can't believe that we went through a half hour again. I want to say thank you, Michael, for being a guest on the podcast. I really appreciate it. You shared a ton of really valuable takeaways for our listeners in both part 1 and part 2. For those of you who didn't listen to part 1, might not know Michael Kithcart, you need to. She is excellent. If you're looking for an executive coach, if you need a keynote speaker, if you just want to talk to somebody who's a high energy, very wise coach, you'll want to look her up. So, Michael, for people who don't know you, how can they find you? What's the best way to find you?
Oh, thank you, Eric. So my website is michaelwkithcart.com, MichaelWkithcart. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and I'm also on Instagram under Michael Kithcart.
Awesome. Anything we didn't cover that you want to make sure we talk about before we wrap things up? But again, I so appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom with us.
Hey, everybody has the ability to redefine what success means to them and win your way. That's what I want to say.
We're going to leave it right there. We're going to leave it right there. Perfect. Thank you to everyone who tuned in, and hope you join me next time for another episode of Rule Number 3, the podcast committed to an asshole-free workplace. Thanks.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks.